The discovery and deception. The stars had always held humanity's greatest hopes and deepest fears. For centuries, we gazed upward, wondering if we were alone in the vast cosmos. On May 17, 2089, we received our answer. Captain Julian Mercer stood on the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Force flagship Horizon, watching as the sleek, crystalline vessels of the Galactic Meridian Alliance entered Earth's orbit. Their ship seemed to bend light itself, refracting the sun's rays into prismatic patterns that danced across the void. Beautiful, he thought, but something about their perfect symmetry unnerved him. "Captain, the Alliance delegation requests permission to board," Lieutenant Fiona Wells announced from her communications station. Mercer nodded, straightening his uniform. "Grant permission, and inform Science Officer Novak to meet me in the diplomatic chamber." The Alliance had arrived 3 months ago, initiating contact with a message of peace and cooperation. They represented a coalition of 17 species spanning over 30 star systems, they claimed. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's, their culture allegedly built on harmony and mutual advancement. They offered humanity membership in their cosmic community, a chance to leap forward into a golden age. Too good to be true, Mercer had thought from the beginning. Science Officer Elise Novak shared his skepticism. Brilliant and perceptive, with a background in xenobiology and quantum physics, she had spent weeks analyzing the limited data the Alliance had shared. As she joined Mercer in the elevator heading to the diplomatic chamber, her expression was grim. "Their biology doesn't make sense, Julian," she said, using his first name now that they were alone. "The Meridians claim to be a species evolved from crystalline structures, but the cellular samples they provided show evidence of artificial engineering." "You think they're lying about their origins?" "I think they're lying about everything." The diplomatic chamber hushed as the Alliance representatives entered. Leading them was High Envoy Zerlix, a towering figure whose translucent body shimmered with internal light. Accompanying him were 2 other Meridians and, surprisingly, Admiral Toshiro Hammond of the UEDF. "Captain Mercer," Hammond nodded curtly, "the Alliance has requested a private demonstration of our military capabilities. I've authorized it." Mercer exchanged a glance with Novak. "With respect, Admiral, I wasn't informed of any demonstration." "The request came directly from the Global Security Council," Hammond replied, his tone suggesting the matter was closed. High Envoy Zerlix stepped forward, his voice resonating with an almost musical quality. "Captain, we have been most impressed with humanity's adaptability and martial prowess. Your species has achieved remarkable military innovation despite your relatively brief civilization. The Alliance values such qualities." "I was under the impression the Alliance was a peaceful organization," Mercer responded carefully. Something like amusement flickered across Zerlix's crystalline features. "Peace must sometimes be enforced, Captain. The universe is not always kind to emerging civilizations." Over the next several days, the Alliance representatives toured Earth's military installations, observing training exercises and weapons demonstrations. They showed particular interest in special forces operations and guerrilla warfare tactics. Aspects of conflict they claimed were fascinating cultural developments. Meanwhile, Novak had been working tirelessly, analyzing every scrap of data on the Alliance. Using her clearance, she accessed secure communications between Earth governments and the Alliance delegation. "Julian, look at this," she said, projection holographic documents in Mercer's quarters late one night. "They've requested detailed genetic samples from our military personnel, focusing on soldiers with combat experience. Stress responses, adaptive immune systems, neural patterns during tactical decision-making." Mercer frowned, scanning the information. "They're studying us like specimens." "Worse," Novak continued, bringing up another file. "I managed to partially decrypt some of their internal communications. They keep referring to humans as viable combat assets and the solution to the Voidborn crisis." "Voidborn? I think it's their enemy, and I think we're meant to be their soldiers." The truth emerged gradually over the following weeks. Through careful intelligence gathering and Novik's brilliant decryption work, Mercer and his team discovered the Alliance's true nature. They weren't the peaceful coalition they claimed to be, but a desperate federation facing extinction. The Voidborn, a mysterious species from the Galactic core, had been systematically destroying Alliance worlds for centuries. Conventional warfare had failed. The Alliance's emphasis on harmony and cooperation had left them ill-prepared for conflict with a purely predatory species. Then they discovered Earth, a planet where conflict had driven evolution and innovation, producing beings uniquely adapted for warfare. Humans could endure hardship, improvise solutions, and most importantly, possessed a psychological capacity for violence that the Alliance species had evolved beyond. "They want to use us as weapons," Mercer explained to the Emergency Council of Earth's military and political leaders. "Their proposal for cultural exchange is actually a recruitment drive. They need soldiers who can think like the enemy, who can be ruthless when necessary." Global Security Director Octavia Reynolds leaned forward. "And what exactly is wrong with that, Captain? They're offering technology centuries beyond our own. If all they want in return is our military expertise against a common threat." "With respect, Director," Novik interrupted, "they're not being honest about what that entails. The physiological data they've requested suggests they intend to modify humans genetically, enhancing our already substantial capacity for violence and survival. They're not looking for allies, they're looking for weapons they can point at their enemy. And disposable ones at that," added Commander Victor Tejada, head of UEDF Intelligence. "Our analysts believe the casualty projections they've hidden in their data transfers suggest a nearly 90% mortality rate for human forces." The debate raged for hours. Some officials saw opportunity in the Alliance's desperation, a chance to secure advanced technology in exchange for military support. Others were outraged at the deception and the implied view of humanity as expendable assets. Meanwhile, Mercer and Novik continued their investigation. Through careful manipulation of Alliance communication systems, they gained access to restricted databanks on one of the crystalline vessels. What they found confirmed their worst fears and revealed something even more disturbing. "They've done this before," Mercer reported to the reconvened council the following day. "At least 7 other species were recruited as allies against the Voidborn. All were less technologically advanced civilizations with strong martial traditions. All were ultimately sacrificed to slow the Voidborn advance." He projected images of extinct homeworlds, devastated in conflicts far beyond their technological capacity to withstand. "And here's the worst part," Novik continued. "The Voidborn aren't some external threat. They're a splinter faction of the Alliance itself, a group that rejected their artificial evolutionary path and embraced a more predatory existence. This is essentially a civil war, and they want to use us as cannon fodder." The evidence was irrefutable. Faced with the Alliance's duplicity, Earth's nations united in an unprecedented way. The Global Defense Initiative was formed, consolidating military resources worldwide under a single command structure, ostensibly to better coordinate with the Alliance, but actually to prepare for potential conflict with them. Outwardly, Earth continued diplomatic relations, accepting limited technology transfers while carefully controlling access to military assets. Secretly, the initiative began developing countermeasures against Alliance technology, adapting the knowledge gained to strengthen Earth's defenses. Captain Mercer was promoted to commander and placed in charge of a special task force dedicated to understanding Alliance weaknesses. Science Officer Novik led a research division focused on reverse engineering their technology. 6 months after first contact, High Envoy Zerlix requested a private meeting with Commander Mercer aboard the Horizon. "Your people delay and prevaricate, Commander," Zerlix said, his crystalline form pulsing with what Mercer now recognized as agitation. "The treaty requires immediate contribution of military personnel for training exercises in the Proxima system." "The treaty is still under review by our legal experts," Mercer replied calmly. "Interspecies agreements require careful consideration." We have been patient, Zerlix's voice hardened. Perhaps too patient. The Alliance has provided technological insights that would have taken your species centuries to develop independently. We expected gratitude and compliance. Humanity is grateful for your assistance, Mercer said, choosing his words carefully. But we prefer honest partnerships to manipulation. Zerlix went still, internal lights dimming momentarily. You know. We know that you've sacrificed other species in your war against the Voidborn. We know that you see us as weapons, not allies. And we know that your so-called peaceful coalition is built on deception. The Meridian's form shifted, crystal facets realigning into a more angular, threatening configuration. You understand nothing, human. The Voidborn will not stop with the Alliance. Eventually, they will find Earth, without our protection. We'll take our chances, Mercer interrupted. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. We're still here. As Zerlix departed, Mercer received an urgent communication from Novik. Julian, we've detected energy surges in the Alliance fleet. They're activating weapons systems. Mercer looked out at the crystalline ships orbiting Earth, their beautiful symmetry now revealing the threat hidden beneath the facade of peace. So much for diplomacy, he said grimly. Initiate Operation Phoenix. Let's show them what happens when you try to use humanity as a weapon. The Alliance had sought to exploit humanity's capacity for warfare. They would soon learn that deception and betrayal were also arts humans had mastered over millennia of conflict. The Galactic Meridian Alliance had wanted weapons. Instead, they had created their own nemesis. And as Alliance ships began moving into attack positions, humanity prepared to demonstrate just how terrible a mistake they had made: the counterattack and ascension. The Alliance attack began without warning. Crystalline vessels positioned themselves above major Earth cities, energy weapons charging with an ominous blue glow. Commander Julian Mercer watched from the horizon's bridge as the first shots fired, brilliant beams of condensed energy streaking toward Earth's surface. But instead of devastation, the beams scattered harmlessly against invisible barriers. Shield integrity holding at 92%, Lieutenant Wells reported, a note of triumph in her voice. All defense grids operational. Mercer allowed himself a small smile. Activate countermeasures Phase 1. For 6 months, Earth had been preparing for this betrayal. While pretending to study Alliance technology for peaceful integration, Dr. Elise Novik and her team had actually been reverse engineering defensive systems and identifying weaknesses in Alliance weaponry. The shields now protecting Earth were hybrid creations, part human innovation, part adapted Alliance technology. High Envoy Zerlix's voice crackled over the communication system, his musical tones now harsh with anger. This resistance is futile, Commander. Your primitive adaptations cannot withstand sustained assault. This isn't resistance, Envoy, Mercer replied calmly. This is humanity declining your offer of enslavement. Colonel Wright, you have tactical command. Colonel Darius Wright, a veteran of the Third Resource War and tactical genius, stepped forward. Dark-skinned with piercing gray eyes that missed nothing, Wright had been chosen specifically to lead Earth's military response. All defense platforms targeting solutions uploaded, he ordered. Initiate Operation Phoenix full-spectrum deployment. Across Earth's orbit, hidden platforms that had been disguised as communications satellites revealed their true nature. Utilizing principles gleaned from studying Alliance weapons, they fired concentrated pulses of energy at precisely calculated points on the crystalline vessels. The Alliance ship's shields held, but the impacts created distinctive resonance patterns. Ripples of energy that Novik's team had discovered were the precursors to shield failure. They're recalibrating, Novik reported from her science station, eyes fixed on the data streams. Adaptive shielding was always their advantage, but we prepared for that. Indeed, Earth's defense systems were already shifting frequencies, targeting different harmonic points in the Alliance shields. It was an approach only humans would have considered, not seeking a single perfect solution, but creating thousands of small disruptions that together would accumulate into catastrophic failure. On the main viewer, an Alliance vessel's shield suddenly collapsed, leaving it vulnerable. Immediately, conventional missile batteries from Earth's surface launched their payloads, not aiming to destroy, but to disable. "First blood to us," Wright noted with professional detachment. "Their propulsion systems are compromised, one hostile neutralized." The battle above Earth continued for hours, a deadly dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation. The Alliance's technology was superior, but they fought with mathematical precision and predictable patterns. Humanity fought with desperate innovation and controlled chaos, constantly changing tactics, accepting losses in some areas to gain advantages in others. Meanwhile, a secondary operation was underway. While the Alliance focused on the defensive battle, a small fleet of experimental Earth vessels slipped away from the conflict, using the chaos as cover. Led by the stealth ship Phantom, under the command of Captain Raj Indra, they carried the most crucial element of Operation Phoenix. "Status report, Captain Indra," Mercer requested over a secure channel. "We've cleared Earth's gravity well without detection," Indra reported. "Course laid in for the coordinates. ETA to the artifact, 16 hours. The artifact was perhaps humanity's greatest discovery and most closely guarded secret. 3 months earlier, an expedition to Mars' southern pole had uncovered something extraordinary, a structure of unknown origin, predating human civilization by millions of years. Within it, technology far beyond even the Alliance's capabilities, apparently abandoned by some ancient race. Most intriguingly, the technology responded only to human neural patterns. When Alliance representatives visited Mars as part of their cultural exchange, the artifacts remained inert. But in the presence of humans, they hummed with power and purpose. Dr. Novick theorized that the creators of these artifacts had been searching for a specific kind of intelligence, one that balanced logic with intuition, aggression with compassion. Somehow, human brains matched the parameters they had established. Now, Captain Indra's mission was to transport a key component of this technology to a specific location in space, coordinates derived from data patterns within the artifact itself. Back at Earth, the tide of battle was gradually turning. 3 Alliance vessels had been neutralized, with minimal civilian casualties on the ground. But the remaining ships were consolidating their attack, focusing their firepower on specific shield nodes. "Shield Grid 7 is failing," Wells reported as the horizon shuddered under a direct hit. "Reroute power from secondary systems," Mercer ordered. "We need to hold them off for another 12 hours. The situation grew increasingly desperate. Earth's ingenious defenses were impressive, but the Alliance's superior technology was gradually overwhelming them through sheer firepower. Shield grids began failing across the globe, and the first Alliance ground forces, crystalline constructs piloted by Meridian consciousness, began materializing in strategic locations. Colonel Wright coordinated the ground response, utilizing guerrilla tactics against the methodical Alliance troops. "They fight like they were programmed," he observed. "No adaptation, no improvisation." This weakness was something Wright exploited mercilessly. Under his direction, Earth forces would engage briefly, then withdraw in apparent disorder, luring Alliance units into ambushes. The Meridians, accustomed to enemies who either stood and fought or fled in panic, struggled to counter these tactics. 12 hours into the battle, with Earth's defenses strained to breaking point, Mercer received the transmission he'd been waiting for. "Commander, we've reached the coordinates," Captain Indra reported. "The artifact is..." Responding, "I can't exactly explain what we're seeing, but it's definitely what Dr. Novick predicted." The Mars artifact component, now at its designated position, had activated, creating a subspace distortion that rippled across thousands of light years. On Earth's sensors, it appeared as a cascade of energy readings unlike anything in Alliance or human scientific understanding. "All Earth forces execute Phase 3, Mercer ordered. Tactical retreat to secondary positions." As Earth's military pulled back, the Alliance pressed their advantage, believing victory was within grasp. High Envoy Zerlix, directing the invasion from the Alliance flagship, transmitted a message to all Earth communication channels. "Your resistance, while admirable, has failed," his resonant voice declared. "Surrender now, and the Alliance will show mercy. Your species will serve a greater purpose in the cosmic order." Commander Mercer's response was simple: "Check your sensors, envoy." The subspace distortion had expanded, forming a massive aperture in the fabric of space-time. Through this unprecedented phenomenon came vessels of a design neither human nor Alliance, angular constructs of dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Automated defense systems," Dr. Novak explained, reading the data from the artifact's activation. "The ancients left them as guardians, programmed to respond to specific threats. Somehow, they recognized the Alliance as such a threat. The ancient vessels moved with impossible speed, targeting Alliance ships with weapons that bypassed their shields entirely. Within minutes, half the invasion fleet was drifting, powerless." On the Horizon's bridge, Mercer opened a channel to the crippled Alliance flagship. "This is your only warning, envoy. Withdraw your forces immediately." For several tense moments, there was no response. Then, Alliance vessels began retreating, jumping to faster-than-light travel with a distinctive flash of light. The battle for Earth was over, but the implications were just beginning to unfold. In the aftermath, Earth's leaders gathered at the newly established Global Defense Command in Geneva. The room buzzed with a mixture of relief and uncertainty as they confronted their new reality. "The Alliance will return," Director Reynolds stated bluntly. "They've lost this battle, but their desperation remains. The Voidborn still threaten their existence." "Let them come," Colonel Wright responded. "We'll be better prepared next time." Dr. Novak, who had spent weeks studying the artifact technology, presented her findings. The ancients who created these artifacts were clearly concerned about the same kind of threat the Alliance now faces. The Voidborn may have existed for millennia, perhaps as a natural counterbalance to civilizations that become too homogeneous. "And they chose humans as their successors," Mercer mused. "Not because we're peaceful or advanced, but because we understand conflict in ways the Alliance never could." "We understand balance," Novak corrected. "The Alliance engineered themselves to eliminate aggression, creativity, individuality, everything they saw as destabilizing. The Voidborn are what happens when you go too far in the opposite direction, pure aggression without restraint." The implications were profound. Humanity had not only survived its first interstellar conflict, but had potentially inherited the mantle of an ancient civilization, one that had recognized the importance of maintaining the cosmic balance between order and chaos. 6 months later, Earth had established a perimeter defense system utilizing the ancient technology. Research outposts on Mars worked to understand the full capabilities of the artifacts, and the first truly human-designed interstellar vessels were under construction, incorporating both Alliance technology and the Ancients' principles. Commander Mercer, now Admiral Mercer, stood with Dr. Novak in the observation lounge of the newly commissioned UESS Prometheus, Earth's first deep space exploration vessel. "The Alliance is regrouping at the edge of the Orion Arm," he said, studying the star charts. "Intelligence suggests they're debating whether to attempt another offensive or sue for peace." "And the Voidborn?" Novak asked. "Still a threat, but now contained within a region around the galactic core. The ancient defense systems are maintaining a quarantine boundary." Novak nodded thoughtfully. "So humanity becomes the balance keeper, not quite what we expected when we looked to the stars." "They wanted to use us as weapons," Mercer said, echoing his words from months earlier. "Instead, they awakened something far more dangerous, a species that understands both war and peace, creation and destruction." As the Prometheus prepared for its maiden voyage, carrying representatives to meet with neutral galactic civilizations who had observed the conflict with the Alliance, humanity stood at a crossroads. They had defeated those who sought to use them, unlocked the legacy of an ancient race, and taken their first true steps into a larger universe. The Alliance had intended to exploit humanity's capacity for warfare. In doing so, They had inadvertently elevated humans to become guardians of a cosmic balance they themselves had disrupted, architects of their own doom and humanity's ascension. The stars no longer held just hopes and fears. Now they offered humanity its destiny,